So far, we haven't set any access restrictions for the get and set accessors of our properties. By default, the get and set accessors have the same level of access as the property itself. But sometimes it can be helpful to control access to either the get and set accessor of a property. By learning how to control the access of these accessors, we can make our code easier to maintain. Usually, we limit the access to the set accessor while keeping the get accessor accessible to the public. Hello guys, welcome back. As we mentioned before, there are 6 access modifiers that can be used for class members, and we have already explained public and private. These modifiers control how methods, fields, properties, and other elements can be accessed. By default, if no access modifier is specified, the members are private. Now, let's see how we can limit the access to accessors in properties. Just like we mentioned, by default, both the getter and setter of a property can be accessed from anywhere the property is visible. Basically, if a property is public, its accessors are also public. For example, in the player class, the get and set accessors of the firstName property are public, because the property itself is public. But we can assign a different access modifier to one of these accessors. Let's say we change the get accessor of the first and last name properties to private. In this case, we won't be able to read these two properties outside of the player class. Alright, let's go to the program class. Now, let's attempt to print the first name. Notice that, even though the first name property is public, we'll encounter an error, because its get accessor is private. Alright, there are 3 key things to keep in mind when specifying access modifiers for the accessors. We can only use accessor modifiers if the property has both set and get or init and get accessors. This means we cannot use access modifiers for read-only or write-only properties. But we can use them for read-write or init-only properties. We can choose to specify the modifier for only one of the two accessors. For example, if we specify an access modifier for both the get and set accessors, we'll encounter an error, stating that we cannot specify accessibility for both accessors. The access level of the accessors should be more limited than the access level of the property. For example, let's change the access modifier of the IT property to protected. In this case, the default access modifier of the accessors becomes protected, and we can only change them to private or private protected. To verify this, let's change the modifier of the set accessor to internal. As you can see, we encountered an error, stating that the accessor must be more restrictive than the property. However, in most cases, the access modifier of the properties is public, and by default, their accessors are also public. If we want to specify an access modifier for one of the accessors, we usually do it for the set accessor. This is because we want to set the value of the property inside the class and read the property outside the class. Now, let's define two properties, age and isYoung. Next, let's make the set accessor of isYoung private. In the set accessor of age, let's check if the age is less than 20. If it is, let's assign true to isYoung. when we make the set accessor private, it becomes similar to read-only and init-only properties. This means that if we try to set the value of the property outside the class, we'll encounter an error. To confirm this, let's go to the program class and try to set the value of isYoung. As you can see, we encountered an error because we're not allowed to set the value of the property due to the private set accessor. Alright, now let's compare the init-only, read-only, and the property with the private set accessor. As we mentioned before, we can only set a read-only property within the constructor by assigning its backing field. On the other hand, an init-only property can be set in the constructor, init blocks, and object initializers. However, when we make the set accessor of a property private, we can set its value anywhere within the class scope. For instance, we can set the isYoung property in the set accessor of the age property, but we cannot set it outside the class. Okay, done. See you soon with another lecture.